Today, we're going to talk about landing interviews after your career break. Have you ever wondered why some people seem more successful at landing interviews than others? Well, it has nothing to do with luck and everything to do with strategy. Now, I know it can seem overwhelming to come up with a game plan from scratch. And it is what most people overlook, but you are not like most people. And after today's video, you are going to have a solid framework that is going to make your job search much more successful and a lot less frustrating. It's the same one that I used when I returned from my career break and I landed multiple interviews and job offers. And it's the same one that I share with my clients. So let's get started on this 5-step framework. Number one is to identify your wants and needs. Now, there is a misnomer that when you return to the paid workforce, that you just need to take whatever opportunity comes your way to get your foot in the door. And that is not the way that you should be approaching this. You need to be clear about what you currently want and need from a position and from a company. Now, what you want now may look different from what you wanted before you left the paid workforce, and that is completely normal. Now is the perfect time to reflect on what you do want and use that as a guide when you are applying for positions. Now, there are 4 areas that you should be looking at, and I call it the CCCR. And that is control, compensation, culture, and role. So let's get into the nitty gritty of each of these. The first C is for control. This is the where, when, and how of a position. So where do you want to work from? Do you want to work from an office 5 days a week? Are you looking for a fully remote position? Are you looking for a hybrid? Also, if you're going into the office, how far is that commute and what are you okay with? And when do you want to work? Are you looking for full time? Are you looking for part time? Are you looking for a position that needs you to work on some off hours or one that you can clock out at 3 o'clock and maybe get back online after your kiddo goes to bed? And then the how is how are you going to work? Is this an autonomous position, or is it one where you're going to have more of a hands-on type of environment? So be honest with yourself of what those look like. And now, when you are going through these CCCRs, you are going to want to come up with a non-negotiable side and a nice to have side. Remember, those non-negotiables really are non-negotiable. Like those are the ones that you are willing to walk away from a position, and be honest with yourself. The second C is compensation. Now, a lot of people think of this as just the salary, but it is so much more. So yes, you should have a minimum salary that you are willing to take, but also think about it as, hey, if there's a bonus involved, are you willing to take a little bit lower of a salary for a higher bonus potential? What about benefits? Are you going to need, health benefits or stock options, retirement? Think of the totality of the compensation package rather than just the salary. And make sure to check out sites such as Glassdoor when you can get more insider information on what the full benefits and compensation package look like. All right, the third C is culture. And this is a biggie because you can have what seems to be the perfect position on paper. And then when you get to working in the company, you're realizing the culture does not align with your values. So things to think about are, what is the mission of the company? Is it one that's a nonprofit, or is it one that is purely just revenue driven? And I'm not saying there's right or wrong. There's just what's right for you. And then once you have an idea of what you're looking for in a company, also think about the next level down, which is the departmental culture. And this is something that you can have some questions to ask during interviews and have those questions ahead of time. That'll give you a sense of what that department is like, because sometimes there is a mismatch between what a company says and what a department does. And next level is team culture. Now, I work for teams where it's expected that we are going to happy hours and outside events a lot of the time to build that team culture. And, that worked for me in my 20s, but now that I have a family, it's not something that aligns with what I'm looking for. So think about those aspects as well. And also make sure to write down potential interview questions that will get to the heart of the team culture as well. And next up is R, and that stands for role. This is what you are going to be doing day in and day out. So make sure that it is something that you enjoy. Take a look at the job description and really get into the nitty gritty of what is going to be expected and make sure it aligns with what you want to do. Also, take a look at the purpose of the position. Now, I've worked for nonprofits and I've also worked for Fortune 500 companies, and I could see a very clear path of what I did and the impact that it had on the community as a whole at my nonprofit. And it was a very warm, fuzzy, feel good feeling. Now, my position at the Fortune 500, it was just to take care of problems and make the company money. And that's okay too. It's just determining what is in line with what you want. And next up is growth. Think about the growth potential in a company and think about the growth potential within a role. With a role, you might not even want a position with much growth potential. You're like, hey, I have a job, it's for a paycheck. I clock in, I clock out, and I have my outside life, which fulfills me, and I don't even really care about my next career progression. On the other hand, you might be thinking, okay, I want to tackle this job, but then I also want to see opportunities for growth either upward or laterally. So make sure to look at that as well. Come up with your list of non-negotiables and nice to haves and write them down. So often we have them in our head and we think, oh, I'm totally going to remember this. And then you don't. So if you write them down, you're like, oh yeah, I wrote these down for a reason. And it's going to remind you that you've already thought long and hard about this, and this is where you landed. Like I said, use that as your guide as you look and apply for jobs. Knowing your wants and needs is imperative, but the next one is equally, if not more important, and that is knowing your value. Knowing your value is multi-layered. Yes, there's the monetary side, but there's also the value that your experience brings to a potential company. Now, if you don't know your value and you're not confident in communicating that, why would a company hire you? You have to be confident and clearly know the value that you bring. Now, I know this one can be a little bit hard if you have been out of the paid workforce for a while. When you are working for a paycheck, you are getting affirmation all the time. I mean, even from receiving a paycheck, but also, achievements, awards, accolades. And when you take a step back, those accolades and achievements turn into, the day-to-day tedious tasks that are rarely rewarding. But I want you to take a step back from that micro level and look at it at a macro level to see all that you have learned and all the skills that you have gained from your time away from the paid workforce. And now I know this can be easier said than done. So I actually have 3 steps to help you determine what those are. Now, first is simply going back to your past professional life, like break out that resume and look at all the achievements that you did while you were in the paid workforce. Get yourself comfortable to talking about those. And next up is to focus on what you have been doing during your career break. I get it. It is easy to shortchange yourself here, but you have been doing so much learning and growing. So think about all that you've been doing. And I'm talking about, any type of volunteer work, any advocacy, caregiving, freelancing. Write that down because that has value that companies are looking for. And once you see it in writing, it kind of makes you think, oh yeah, heck, I have been doing a lot. If you are just not seeing that value, ask others. Sometimes when we're in the nitty gritty, we don't see the value that we are giving, but those around us can. Ask your friends, ask your family, ask past coworkers, people you volunteer with. Just ask them, what do you believe my strengths are? What do you believe I bring to this project? And just write down and hear what they say, because when others see value in what you're doing, then that just confirms that other companies and hiring managers are also going to see that value. And if you're getting value from this video, then make sure to hit the like button below. See what I did there? Value. Okay, I know that was corny. Moving on. Next up is creating connections. Now, it is estimated that 50 to 80% of positions are filled through the side door, shall we say, which essentially is knowing somebody. Now, think about it like this. Let's say you wanted to find an Italian restaurant to eat at. Now, you could do a Google search, right? And you are going to be met with a ton of different options, and you'll sort through them. You'll look at pictures, you'll look at menu, you're like, oh, okay, I think I have one, but you're not quite sure, but you're just going to try it out. Now imagine your neighbor says, hey, you know what? My daughter tried out this amazing Italian place. You'll most likely be like, okay, tell me more. And he tells you, well, she really enjoyed it. She really suggested it. And you're like, okay, maybe I'll try that out. Now imagine your neighbor tells you that they themselves went to an Italian restaurant and they told you about the menu, the ambiance, the pricing. Now, assuming that you and your neighbor are on the same page and you value and respect their opinion, that recommendation is gold. Now, think about it through the lens of a hiring manager. They can sift through a ton of applications received through job boards, or they can use a company referral system where somebody in the company refers somebody, and they're much more likely to bring that person in for an interview. But now let's say that somebody that they work with, where they value and respect their opinion, says, I have this candidate I just think would be a great fit. I bet you they are much more apt to bring that person in for an interview. And that is why connections are so key. And the great part about connections is that when you're on a career break, you're actually making even more connections that are outside of your quote unquote normal circle than you normally would. And those are called weak ties. And there is great value in that. So make sure that you are forming connections right now. I mean, so many people wait until they're just about to start applying, but once you start watering those plants or seeds, shall I say, I'm not a gardener. Once you start watering those seeds, that's when they're going to sprout into something that can be of benefit. Now, make sure when you're going in creating connections, don't go in with the agenda of, I'm going to use this person to get a job. No, just be open to learning, because that is where the magic happens. You don't know what you can learn from that person. That person might be a mentor. And yes, they might even think of you when a job becomes open. Now, the best time to start creating those connections is right now. So I challenge you to actually reach out to a few people that you would like to learn from right after you watch this video, because you don't know where those connections could lead. And once one of your connections says, hey, send over your resume, you're going to want to be prepared with the next point, which is leveraging the power of your resume. At the most basic level, a resume is a professional snapshot of you, but it is so much more. It shows why you specifically are a fit for a position. And this is where you have the opportunity to show off your career break. Yep, show off your career break. Don't hide it. Don't try to mask it. Own it. And when you are able to take actual concrete things that you've done during your career break and translate that into impactful statements that show why you're a great candidate, you're going to be seen as a very well-rounded person who can bring value. For example, I'm a career coach at Dress for Success. Rather than just say volunteer at Dress for Success, me saying something like volunteer as a Dress for Success career coach who has helped over 50 women refine their resume and interviewing skills. Now, if I were going for a position where I was, looking to be a career counselor or a recruiter somewhere, that directly translates into what I'm going to be doing. And that's the stuff that you want in that career gap that is going to show why what you've been doing during your career break is a great fit for the position that you are applying for. And if you would like to learn a bit more about how to address that gap, make sure to check out the video that I have linked down below. And the final cog in the wheel is to track the process and track your progress. There is a lot of information to remember when you're applying for positions, right? Your contacts, the research you're doing on the companies, the positions you're applying for, when they were posted, all of this. And if you don't have a tracking system, it is really easy to just be overwhelmed and lose track. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just a simple Excel sheet will do. Now, I do like to have different tabs on my Excel spreadsheet. I have a contacts tab, positions, research, and interview. And each of these is an opportunity for me to write down all the pertinent information, notes, research, and it's a one stop shop where I can just refer back to it. And it's also a great way to see where you're kind of hitting those roadblocks, right? If you're only reaching out to like two people to contact, well, we need to start building that out. Now, if you have great contacts and you're having some informational interviews, but you're just not landing interviews, well, that's time to look at maybe your resume and see what we can do there to improve it. Or if you are getting the interviews, but you're not landing those job offers, then all right, what do we need to do in the interviewing stage? Having this all laid out is just going to make it so much easier for you as you go through this process. And a pro tip for you, whenever you have a job that you have applied for, I always recommend putting a link in the Excel sheet, but also copy and paste that job description, because sometimes once a recruiter or hiring manager has enough of resumes to go through, they will pull down that posting. So you'll go to the link and you're like, oh, that position isn't there anymore. So just make sure to go ahead and copy and paste that into a document so you have that for your reference when you do start landing those interviews. So there you have it, my 5-step framework. And I can guarantee you that doing this is going to put you ahead of so many other applicants, because most other people don't put in the work ahead of time and the results show, but not you. You're going to put in the work and you're going to have results that are going to land you interviews and job offers. Now, if you would like to learn about companies that are specifically looking for people who have taken a career break, make sure to check out my video here.